They laughed when she married the man who repaired torn shoes on the roadside. Years later, the same people stood in line outside the hospital she built. Hello, my wonderful family, and welcome back to Imi's African Folktale Stories, the home of emotional, inspiring, and unforgettable stories. So, sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for a journey filled with love, betrayal, tears, shocking discoveries, and a powerful lesson about forgiveness and second chances. Grace stood in the middle of her parents' beautiful sitting room, holding James' rough hand tightly. James' shirt was clean but old. His shoes had been repaired many times. His hands were covered with shoe polish from repairing shoes by the roadside every day. Grace's father looked at him from head to toe before laughing. "So this is the man you want to marry?" he asked. James nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir. I love your daughter." Grace's mother burst into laughter. "You repair shoes under a mango tree. You don't even own a shop." Her older brother shook his head. "This is the biggest joke of the year." Everyone in the house laughed except Grace. She squeezed James' hand. "I love him." Her father became serious. "You are studying nursing. We have sacrificed everything for your education. You are about to destroy your future." Grace looked into her father's eyes. "My future is with James." Her mother slammed her hand on the table. "If you marry this poor man, don't ever come back to this house." The room became silent. James slowly released Grace's hand. "Grace," he whispered, "I don't want you to lose your family because of me." She smiled through tears. "I already chose my family." She held his hand again. "You." 3 weeks later, Grace discovered she was pregnant. She was both scared and happy. That evening, she visited her best friend, Sarah. Sarah screamed. "What?" Grace smiled nervously. "I'm pregnant." Sarah stopped smiling immediately. "You have to abort." Grace blinked. "What?" "You are only in your second year of nursing. You have no money. James is poor. This baby will destroy your future." Grace slowly shook her head. "No." Sarah held both her shoulders. "Listen to me. You still have time. Remove the pregnancy. Finish school. Marry a rich man later." Grace wiped away tears. "I cannot kill my child because life is difficult." Sarah became frustrated. "You are making the biggest mistake." Grace smiled sadly. "Maybe. But I want to live with my decisions." When Grace's parents heard about the pregnancy, they became furious. Her mother cried loudly. "You have shamed this family." Her father pointed at her. "You still have one chance. Abort the baby. We shall forgive you." Grace slowly placed both hands on her stomach. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Daddy. Mommy. I know I disappointed you. I know this pregnancy came earlier than anyone expected. But please believe me. I will not abort my baby. I promise you I will finish my nursing course. I may study slowly. I may study while carrying my child. I may even graduate later than everyone else. But I will become a nurse. Please don't ask me to kill my child." Her mother turned away. Her father's face became hard. "Dream all you want. Without our money, you will never enter that lecture room again." Grace wiped her tears. "Then I will find another way." Her father stood up. "Then from today, we shall never pay another coin for your education. You are no longer our daughter." Grace cried, but she refused to give in. She walked out carrying only one small bag. She never looked back. James rented one tiny room. The roof leaked whenever it rained. The bathroom was shared by 12 families. Their bed was made from old wooden boxes, and their table was an upside-down bucket. Still, Grace smiled every morning. "We are home. James hugged her. I'm sorry, this is all I can afford. She kissed his forehead. It is enough. Life became harder. Sometimes they ate once a day, sometimes not at all. Grace washed people's clothes, cleaned offices, sold boiled eggs at the taxi park, braided women's hair during weekends, and washed dishes at a small restaurant every evening. One afternoon, she returned home exhausted. James found her sleeping while sitting up, her hands swollen. He quietly covered her with a blanket, then went outside and cried. I will change this life, he promised himself. The next morning, Grace picked up the basket of dirty clothes. James gently took it from her. No. Grace smiled. We need the money. James shook his head. Not like this. Look at your hands. He held them carefully. They were swollen and covered with small cuts. He kissed her hands. You are carrying our baby. Your job now is to rest. Mine is to work. Grace looked worried. But how will we survive? James smiled. I will repair more shoes. I will push wheelbarrows. I will load trucks. I will do any honest work. I refuse to let my wife destroy herself while carrying my child. James worked almost every hour. He repaired shoes, polished shoes, fixed school bags, and repaired belts. At night, he pushed a wheelbarrow carrying goods in the city market. On weekends, he loaded cement at construction sites. Some nights he slept only 2 hours. Grace often begged him, please rest. James smiled. If I rest, our dreams will sleep too. One funny afternoon, a customer brought in a single shoe. James repaired it perfectly. Where's the second shoe? He asked. The customer scratched his head. I lost it. James stared. So why did you repair one shoe? The customer smiled proudly. In case I find the other one. James laughed so hard he almost fell off his chair. Even Grace laughed until tears rolled down her cheeks. For a moment, poverty disappeared. The following day, their daughter, Hope, was born on a rainy night. James held the tiny baby. I have never seen anything this beautiful. Grace smiled weakly. Our Hope. Years passed. James became famous for his quality work. People traveled from different towns to repair expensive leather shoes. One businessman noticed his skills. I have an idea. We become partners. James agreed and they started making handmade leather shoes. Business grew quickly. They employed 5 workers. Then 20. Then 50. Soon, James owned a factory. His company supplied shoes across the country. Luxury cars replaced bicycles. A mansion replaced the leaking room. People who once laughed now greeted him first. James never attended important business meetings alone. Grace always stood beside him. She smiled proudly as investors congratulated her husband. But unlike the other wives, Grace still dressed simply. She preferred simple African dresses, tied her natural hair the same way, and wore the small wedding ring James had bought when they were poor. She never wanted expensive jewelry. This is who I am, she often said. My husband made it. She believed success belonged to both of them. She had no idea that success had already changed James. Rich people surrounded him. Business meetings became expensive dinners, luxury hotels, fashion shows, and television interviews. One evening, James looked around a business dinner. Every executive's wife wore designer clothes, while Grace wore the simple dress she loved. James whispered, maybe next time buy something more expensive. Grace smiled. Why? This dress is comfortable. James forced a smile, but inside, he felt ashamed. That night was the first time success whispered pride into his heart. Then James attended an international business conference. During lunch, he accidentally dropped his phone. A beautiful woman picked it up. "Here." James smiled. "Thank you. I'm Vanessa, CEO of Vancrest Holdings." James introduced himself. They laughed, exchanged business cards, and started discussing investments. Meetings became lunches. Lunches became dinners. Vanessa was beautiful, rich, educated, and sophisticated. She came from one of the wealthiest families in the city, wore designer clothes, spoke perfect English, and owned several companies. James became fascinated. Weeks later, Vanessa called. "I'd like to see your home." James hesitated, then agreed. One evening, Vanessa looked around his mansion. "Who designed this place?" "My wife." Vanessa laughed softly. "The nurse who never became a nurse." James forced a smile. "Yes." Vanessa looked at Grace's simple dress in the picture. "You deserve someone who matches your level." Those words entered James' heart like poison. Slowly, he became ashamed of Grace. He stopped introducing her at business events, corrected her English in public, and complained about everything she did. "You embarrass me. You don't understand business. You don't fit into my new life." Grace remained silent. She remembered the roadside, the hunger, the leaking roof, and the nights she slept hungry so James could eat. She never answered back. One evening, James came home carrying divorce papers. He placed the papers on the table. Grace pushed them back. "No." James sighed. "Grace, please." She cried. "We built this life together. Remember the leaking roof? Remember sleeping hungry? Remember pushing your wheelbarrow? Was I good enough then?" James remained silent. Days passed, then weeks. James became colder. He stopped coming home, and lawyers started calling. "I think we should separate," James finally told her. Grace looked at him for a long time. "Why?" "I've changed. You deserve someone simple. I deserve someone different." Grace noticed another woman's perfume on his shirt. She understood. Finally, Grace looked at Hope, then signed, not because she wanted to, but because she understood love cannot survive where respect has died. Without shouting, without fighting, she signed. Her heart broke quietly. Grace packed one small suitcase and carried Hope's school bag. Before leaving, she walked into every room, every wall reminding her of sacrifice. She touched the front door. "Goodbye." Hope held her hand. Mother and daughter walked out. Neither looked back. Months later, James married Vanessa in one of the biggest weddings in the city. The newspapers called them the perfect couple. Grace and little Hope watched the wedding on television. Hope looked at her mother. "Why isn't Daddy here?" Grace smiled through tears. "He is busy." She switched off the television and cried the whole night. Life became cruel again. Grace had rented another tiny room. She sold vegetables, worked as a cleaner, worked nights at a small clinic, and sold homemade snacks. Sometimes she carried Hope on her back while walking. Many employers refused to hire her because she had a child. Still, she never gave up. One day, Sarah returned. Sarah had moved to another city to work as an accountant, and though she called often, Grace had never told her how bad life had become. Sarah returned for a family wedding and searched for Grace. What she found broke her heart. Grace expected judgment. Instead, Sarah hugged her tightly. "I was wrong," Sarah cried. "I should never have told you to abort Hope." She wiped away her tears. "I cannot change the past, but I will never leave you again." And she never did. Whenever Grace lacked food, Sarah shared hers. Whenever Hope became sick, Sarah stayed all night. Whenever Grace wanted to quit, Sarah reminded her, "You survived worse." Hope studied hard, wanting to become a doctor. Grace paid every school fees alone for many years, sometimes skipping meals to keep Hope in school. When secondary school became expensive, Sarah quietly visited Grace and placed an envelope on the table containing half of Hope's school fees. Grace shook her head. "I can't take it." Sarah smiled. "You're not taking it. I'm investing in my niece's future." One evening, Sarah found an advertisement, nursing school readmission. She placed it before Grace. "This is your second chance." Grace stared silently. "I am too old." Sarah smiled. "So? I have no money." "We shall find it." Grace worked even harder. Morning was cleaning, afternoon was working as a clinic assistant, and night was studying. Sometimes she slept sitting up, with Hope studying beside her. "Mommy, you can do it," Hope would say. Those simple words gave Grace strength. Years later, she graduated, not as the youngest nurse, but as one of the strongest. She worked in hospitals, saved every coin, and eventually opened a small clinic. Patients trusted her because she treated them with kindness. The clinic grew larger and larger. Investors noticed her work, banks approved loans, charities supported her maternal health projects, and doctors joined her mission. Finally, Grace built one of the largest private hospitals in the city. It was modern, clean, and affordable, with doors open to both the rich and the poor. Above the entrance was a simple sign: Hope Medical Center. Named after the daughter everyone had wanted her to abort. Meanwhile, James' company was falling apart. Vanessa spent money faster than it came in, corrupt managers stole from the business, and poor investments failed. Banks seized the factories, cars disappeared, and the mansion was sold. Vanessa packed her designer bags. "I'm not staying with a poor man." She left. James watched her drive away. He remembered another woman who had stayed when he owned nothing. One afternoon, James collapsed in the street from exhaustion. People rushed him to the nearest hospital. When he slowly opened his eyes, he looked around at the beautiful hospital, modern machines, professional staff, and clean rooms. He whispered, "Which hospital is this?" The nurse smiled. "Hope Medical Center." He froze. "Hope." He looked toward the office as a woman in a white coat walked in confidently, "Grace." She looked stronger, calmer, and successful. For a moment, neither spoke. James lowered his eyes. "I lost everything." Grace nodded gently. "I heard." Tears rolled down his face. "I left the woman who believed in me when I had nothing." Grace remained silent. "I thought success meant finding someone better." He cried harder. "But success left me." Grace handed him a glass of water, not with anger or revenge, but with dignity. "I became a nurse after all." James looked around the hospital. "You built all this?" She smiled. "Brick by brick. Just like we built our first life." Hope looked down at her father. The man who had once seemed larger than life now looked fragile, weak, older, and entirely broken. She turned to her mother. "Mom." Grace remained silent, her expression calm and unreadable. "He hurt us," Hope said softly. "I know he did. But he is still my father. Please help him." Grace looked at James for a long moment, the painful memories of the past washing over her, only to be replaced by the peace she had built for herself. A gentle smile touched her lips. "Prepare the best room," Grace instructed her staff. "He will receive the same care and treatment as every other patient." Hearing those words, James lowered his head into his hands. For the first time in decades, the proud man wept openly, letting his tears fall without shame. A few days later, outside the main office, Sarah stood leaning against the wall, a soft, knowing smile on her face. Beside her stood Hope, now a bright, confident young medical student wearing her own crisp white coat, walking arm in arm with her mother. From the window of his room, James watched them live together. A crushing truth settled deep in his heart: the greatest wealth he had ever owned was never his factory, his mansion, or his millions. It was the family he had so carelessly thrown away. And now, that family had learned to flourish without him. When his treatment was complete, James walked out through the automatic doors of the hospital. He left with no company, no fortune, and no luxury car waiting outside, carrying only the suffocating, heavy weight of regret. From the top floor, Grace watched his solitary figure disappear down the street. She didn't feel triumph, nor did she hold malice. She simply turned back toward the bustling heart of a hospital, where mothers held their newborn babies tightly, nurses hurried purposefully through bright corridors, and lives were being restored every single day. The woman they had once mocked for loving a roadside shoe repairer had become a beacon of light to thousands. And whenever people asked her why she chose to name the sanctuary Hope Medical Center, Grace would look at her daughter, smile softly, and say, "Because hope is the one thing you should never abort, never abandon, and never underestimate."